But if you'd open your Bibles to Joshua chapter 3. Actually, I'm really confident that this will fit with what he's going to say next week, so it's not really much doubt. I'm going to read the whole passage to you from Joshua chapter 3, probably several verses. I'm reading from the English Standard Version, and if this sermon had a topic, a title, I'd call it Change is Coming. All right, because change always comes. Things always change. Even though when they seem like they're the same, if you've gotten a day older, something has changed. So it says, Then Joshua rose early in the morning, and they set out from Shittim. And they came to the Jordan, and he and all the people of Israel and lodged there before they passed over. At the end of 3 days, the officers went through the camp and commanded the people, As soon as you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God being carried by the Levitical priests, then you shall set out from your place and follow it. Yet there shall be a distance between you and it, about 2,000 cubits in length. Do not come near it, in order that you may know the way you shall go, for you have not passed this way before. Right? So we are actually in the middle of moving. We're at the beginning of the middle of moving. And we're moving. Churches move for lots of reasons. We're moving because it's time for us to move. And I think that's kind of unsettling for some people, maybe. I'm not sure. You know, we've gone through lots of changes. I've been here 6.5, maybe 7 years. And things do change. But the question with change comes is, what's your attitude toward it? Because some changes you can be responsible for. Some of them you're not responsible for. So what's your attitude toward it? You know, I got up yesterday morning, and Jenica, who's here with us, had actually put one of my favorite quotes on the fridge, which made me laugh, and I didn't know I was going to preach then when I read it. But I'm going to read it. It's from G.K. Chesterton, and it says, An inconvenience is only an adventure wrongly considered. And an adventure is only an inconvenience rightly considered. So I've had a few adventures in my life. They weren't very convenient. You know, people think adventures are fun. They're fun to read about. But when you go sort of freestyle backpacking in the Rockies from Madison, Wisconsin, where it's been 90 degrees for a month, and you get out of your car and it's 40 degrees and snowing, and you have no way to get back except to walk, and you have your summer clothes on, that's a bit of an adventure, right? And the way adventures go, there's usually only one way to go, and that's to go through them. You can't often go back to where you started. And that's what we're having with God, is an adventure. And it's not very convenient for me because God doesn't actually hold my comfort in very high esteem. Not nearly as much esteem as I do. And he often doesn't hold my preferences in consideration when he's leading us and guiding us. So the passage that I'm reading out of Joshua, those of you who know this story, this is the end of their 40-year punishment. Because I think if you look at it on a map, actually the trip that God intended to take them on didn't take 40 years to get there. They spent a lot of time wandering around. That doesn't necessarily apply to our situation, because we're going because God is moving us. But the principles and the things that the people had to get ready to go through apply to our situation. All right? So we're on this adventure with God. The first thing that you notice, and I'll read some more, is that all of the first generation, everybody that came out of Egypt, all the warriors and all the fighters, they had died in the wilderness. This was a new crew who'd grown up in the wilderness, and so all they knew was God's provision. All they knew was 6 days a week, manna fell from heaven, they gathered it up. It wasn't the best. Like, it wasn't really my favorite. But it sustained us and it kept us going. They knew that God had given them victories over some battles. And they were fit because they were walking. And they knew that they were getting ready to go to war. because God had promised them a land, but a land by conquest. I think that promise applies to us. I'm not sure where we're moving yet. I'm not sure anybody actually is sure. I would encourage you all to pray that we can reach our decision and find the place that God would move sooner than later, because it's easier to move in the spring, in the fall than in the winter. And there's also other clocks ticking. So I think we do need to be about seeking the Lord to find out where He'd have us to go. And I encourage you to recognize that you have the opportunity to be on an adventure. Since I've been here for a while, I've seen the congregation be big, be small, be bigger again. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm thinking more like bigger again. All right? So we need to prepare ourselves to be able to be part of what God is doing. And just have to remember, if it's not convenient, it's probably an adventure. Right? If it's a great inconvenience, it's probably an adventure. There's some lessons for you to learn. There's some things for you to go through. And there's a different way to meet God than you've met Him before in the past. So there's, in our attitudes toward change, a lot of people have studied the way people react to change, and there's kind of sort of a loose grouping of 5 kinds of people. And we're all kind of in one or more of these buckets, depending on our circumstance and lots of reasons. And they change. But the interesting thing is that there's some people that are called early innovators. These people live on the bleeding edge of technology. And I used to do that when I was working in technology publishing, and it's your blood. Because your machines break, your code doesn't work, you can't get your job done, you spend a lot of time rebuilding your machine so you can do your job, which has to do with tearing your machine apart. But that's only 2.6% of the population. Most people don't have a stomach for that. And even if you did it, when I did it when I was younger, I don't take my computers apart anymore. I want them to work. When I think about technology, I think about a toaster. I put the bread in, I set the dial, I push the thing down, comes up and it's toast. I don't want to have to write any more code. I don't want to do anything else. I want it to work. All right? But you need those 2.6% of the people, because they're the ones who are going to take you places you wouldn't go. The next group are early adopters, and that's about 13% of the population, would fall into the early adopter class, which means that they'll go, but it's not their idea. But they'll go. It's not their idea. And they'll have fun going. But it's not going to be their idea. Then the next group is, it's called the slow majority. That's the herd, and that's 34% of the population. They just kind of follow. Not real fast, but they're not real resistant. They're just going to get there when they get there. There's another group that's a reluctant majority. These are the ones whose heels are in the ground and they're going. Right? They don't really want to, but they're going. And then the other group, 16%, are just antagonistic toward change. They're going to fight tooth, nail, and claw. They don't want to go. So I bet, based on who's left and who's in the room and who still fellowships with us regularly, most of us are in either the innovator, the early adopter, the slow majority stage. Because when the church changed, those who are antagonistic toward change, they left. And I don't wish them any ill. We do what we do for why we do what we do. But for some reason, there's people I'm looking at that have been looking at me for 6 years. We've been here together, believing God to do something, to finish something that He started, to start something new with us. And that's really where we are. We're at the river of the Jordan. Okay? So when you think about it, you want to think that you're going to have to readjust your priorities. And they had to readjust their priorities because you've never been this way before. And Joshua's first command to them was in verse 6, Then Joshua said to the people, Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. Consecrate yourselves. Okay, He's talking to me. He's talking to you. He's talking to all of us. To consecrate means to clean up, rededicate, refocus, go back to the things where that first love was that it talks about in Revelation, that first excitement. Consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, for soon, the Lord is going to do something. He's going to do wonders among you. So there's an opportunity here as we make this move for seeking the Lord in prayer in a way that we've never done before. And that works for me because I'm not on the relocation committee. I'm on the prayer committee. So I just pray about this all the time. Lord, show us where you want us to go. Show us what you want us to look like. Show us how you want us to interact with the new community that you put us in. Because what we're bringing are some seeds of truth and some foundational biblical knowledge and hopefully lifestyle that a lot of people may not have seen before. There's a lot that we have to offer a lost and dying world. And when he takes us there, my prayer is that when he plants us, that it would spring up to be that tree whose leaves are the healing of the nation around us. Are you ready? Are you willing to share your faith? Have a word in season for somebody? A word of encouragement? Consecrate yourselves. This is our time to get ready, because we're moving, okay? We are moving. So we're moving whether you're ready or not. But I think God is saying, consecrate yourselves. Prepare yourselves. Seek my face. I'm going to do wonders among you. Then Joshua said to the priests, take up the Ark of the Covenant and pass on before the people. So he took up the Ark of the Covenant and went before the people. Then the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. And as for you, command the priests who bear the ark, when you come to the brink of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan. And the same thing that happened when they came out of Egypt happened again when they crossed the river Jordan. So the people that had gone through the Red Sea on dry land, they're already dead. Their kids have heard about it. These are their kids. They heard those stories. Yeah, right. Okay, Dad. Yeah, sure. Okay. Whatever. You guys got out. However you got out. But now the same thing happens. The waters pile up on one side. And there's a couple times they cross this river Jordan in the Old Testament. It's always in the springtime. It's always when the water's high and cold. It's coming down from the mountains. And it's turbulent. So there's some turbulence in front of us. But what God's going to do is he's going to pile it up so we can pass over. This is God's idea. I think the fact that we're still here together fellowshipping is God. Except for those of us who would not change anyway, then we would stay no matter what. But I think it's God. And so when you think about consecrating yourself, the first thing to look at, here's a practical tip for you, is to look at some things. What are your priorities? What are your priorities? And how well do your priorities mesh with what God is doing? Because I have my agenda, you have your agenda, and then God has his agenda. How well do they mesh? How much in agreement with God are we? And if we're frank and honest, most of us would say we're not in as much agreement as we need to be. Because we know better. Deep down inside, no matter how you explain it away, we probably know better. So then the questions are, when you arrange your priorities, the first question is, well, what do you think about? Because as the man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So what do you think about? Are you thinking about the work that God wants to do? Are you thinking about the adventure that we have in front of us? The possibility of meeting people you've never maybe met before? And I'm assuming that we're all Christians and we're still here because we have something, we've had some experiences, something has changed in our life. And we think it's a good thing. Are we excited about sharing that with somebody else? You can be scared, nervous, and have the jitters, but are you excited? Because scared, nervous, and jitters and excitement, those are all parts of adventure. Right? Along with the inconvenience, the discomfort, the challenge, the lack, the uncertainty. All those things are under that umbrella called adventure. which I call walking with God. It's an adventure. He's going to do wonders among us. So what do you think about, and then what do you spend your time doing? I'm not judging anybody for, I'm not really a very religious person as far as activities go, so I don't really care what you're doing. I mean, it's your agenda, it's your schedule. But you need to look at what you're doing and say, does what I'm doing reflect what I say I believe? Does it reflect where I want to go? Does it reflect where I'm going to be? Because if you ride with us, we're going to move. We're going to go somewhere else. We're going to be in a different place with different neighbors and probably different seating arrangement and, different people walking in. We're going to have to figure out how to do the things that we figured out how to do in our little rooms and our places here, wherever we go, and maintain that. Oh, and by the way, we got a lot of stuff to move. So we do have there's a lot of work involved. But what do you spend your time on? And then the other thing is, what do you spend your money on? Because I work in financial services, I tell people, by the time I pull someone's credit, and this is a gift from God, that I can pull your credit, I get the whole look at your whole life, and then I forget it. Which is, for me, is really thankful. Because there's two people that know a lot about you. One is your doctor, the other is your banker. Right? So where do you spend your money on? What do you think about? What are you doing? Where do you invest your resources? And if you get to choose to do something, what do you choose when you have a choice? Those are all part of consecrating. This is kind of what does it take to consecrate me? What does it take for me to be ready so that when God says, go, I'm ready to go? And you have to get ready, okay? You can read really clearly that even though God gives you an invitation, you still have to get ready to take the invitation. You can come as you are, but He's going to clean you up and change you so you can go. It's not come as you are, stay as you are. It's come as you are, I will make you new. I will give you new robes of righteousness. I will wash your mind with my word. So I'll change your thinking, change your worldview. He's trying to do all that in our hearts. And the question is, will we let Him, or do we resist Him at every turn? And you guys have to answer that for yourself. Like I can't answer that for anybody, and I don't actually like to answer it for myself. I mean, it's a really hard question. But if we don't ask hard questions, we don't get the good stuff at the end. Because if you keep doing the same thing you've been doing the way you've always been doing it, then you get the same thing you've been getting all the time. And we want something different. When Joshua said this to the priests, he said, come here and listen to the words of the Lord your God. Here's how you shall know that the living God is among you, and that He will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Jebusites. So that's all the inhabitants of the land, right? Somewhere from years and years ago, I had a Bible study this guy did once, and he did a word study on all these names. And some of the names actually have parts of what we would call habits or attitudes. Like some of the root words are sort of the same as jealousy and anger and murder and resentment and lying. So these are not good guys. But God's promise is, I'm going to make a way for you. I'm going to clear out all this stuff. And if you put it and summarize it, I'm going to make a way to clear out all of the carnality so that you can live in the fullness of Christ. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord and of the earth is passing over before you into the Jordan. Now therefore take 12 men from the tribes of Israel, from each tribe a man, and when the soles of the feet of the priests bearing the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off from flowing, and the waters coming down from above shall stand in one heap. All right, and that did actually happen for them. They went over again on dry land. And so translate that dry land. When our move happens, it's going to be a wondrous thing. We need to pray that God would just bring all the pieces together. Because I know we've looked at several different sites and they didn't work for one reason or another. So our prayer needs to be, God, where? Are we ready to move? Or are we like this? And so some of us are praying to move, and some people are saying, there's too many unknowns, it's too uncertain. If God tells me, then I'll know for sure. But that's not how he works. We walk by faith, and so we have to be willing to trust the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, what was in that box? Anybody know offhand? I think Dominic asked this last 2 weeks ago. Anybody remember? 10 Commandments. We got the Word of the Lord. What else? Aaron's rod. We got leadership, right? We got spiritual, divinely appointed leadership. What else? The manna. God's provision. Okay? So, I believe that the way God has moved in the past, he continues to move in the present, and he will move in the future according to what he said he'll do in the future. So he gave promises to them, and those promises are for us as well, because we're his people, and we're on the move. And we still have to battle. We may not have, in our time frame, a physical battle, physical confrontation, but there's a battle that goes on in here when I'm afraid or anxious, angry, filled with lust, depressed, you name it. Okay? There's a long list of them in Corinthians, of attitudes and things. Attitudes of your heart and your mind. So there's a battle going on. And it impacts us when we come together. And if we know we have sin, then we're supposed to repent. Because God is quick to forgive us. When we turn around, go the other way. All right? It's not real complicated. It's not a big deal to God. The devil makes it be a really big deal, and he keeps us in it. But you're going to have to step out, and we're going to have to go. So I'm talking about the church moving, but I guarantee you there's change in everybody's life sitting in the room. God is telling you something. He's trying to work on something. He's after something in your heart. He's after something in your mind. He's after something with your kids or your husband or your wife or your father, your mother, your brother, your neighbor, the guy you work with. He's moving, and he's trying to stir us up and get us to engage with him on his terms. We have a choice. These people had a choice too. They could have just said, no, I'm not going. In fact, 2 of the tribes had worked out a deal. They liked the land. They liked the pastoral land. They didn't want to go. If you read through Joshua, he said to Reuben, I think in Gad, okay, you can stay, but your soldiers have to come with us. And then when every tribe has their inheritance, your guys can come home. So you can leave your wives and your children here with your flocks on this side. We're going on this side. So there's some flexibility here. But they still had a commitment to honor because they were part of the church. So if you're part of the church, pray for the church. When you think about the church, pray for the church. Don't allow anything to come in and trick you or make you feel deceived or you're nervous because we don't know where we're going. This is America, it's not that big a deal. We're going to go somewhere. We have lots of places to go. Like there's some places in the world where there'd be harder places to go. It'd be harder to find somewhere to go. And there'd be other places in the world where you wouldn't have anywhere else to go. So we're thankful that we can pray and seek the Lord and let him lead us where he wants us to go so we can do and become what he wants us to do and who he wants us to be. This is not like a fortress or citadel where you just kind of hunker down and wait. We're supposed to be a light. And we are. There's people who showed up here that didn't used to be here. They just kind of drop in. I think people watch us on the internet that may not show up physically. I think we get lots of hits on the website. And I talk to people. So I just want to encourage you to know that God's on time. We're going to break camp and follow. Pray. God does lead us into the unknown. Okay, he takes you where you don't know where you're going to go. And you have to consecrate yourselves to participate in what God's doing. His part is he's made a way Your part is to accept the invitation. And then when you accept the invitation, he enables you to do your part. It's a slam dunk. He makes me want to do it, and then he enables me to do what I want to do, which is what he made me want to do. So I just want to encourage you as you go through the week, you know, if I and I probably won't, because I don't like to, well, I probably won't. I can't say I won't for sure. But ask yourself, am I praying for the leadership of the church to hear the mind of the Lord, to figure out where we're going? That's what we can do, all right? We're not going to pray today afterwards because Dominic's not here and I have to leave. But as you go and you know we're moving, pray. And when you're dealing with change in your life and you see changes coming in your life, pray. Kids are growing up. Pray for them. Going to have a baby. Pray for them. Someone's getting married. Pray for them. Someone just got married. Pray for them. You know? You hear about tragedy. Stop and pray. Every opportunity is a chance for you to engage with God in the role that he wants you to be in, which is, as a child, talking to him about the stuff that you encounter. So I hope that you're encouraged with our situation. I mean, I am. I think it's wonderful. I'm really curious. I'm really excited. And I got a lot of stuff to move. But I'm excited to find out, where we're going to go. What are we going to do when we get there? What's it going to look like? Who's our community? How are we going to reach out to them? How are they going to know we're there? Are they going to come in and join us? Are we going to be inviting if they come in? Like all these questions. Because it's an adventure. Walking with God is the best adventure offered. But it is very inconvenient. And you do have some moments of sheer terror. But he's always with you. And he tells Joshua over and over and over, be not afraid. Be courageous. Don't be afraid. I am with you. So as I believe he's with us as we plan our move, I believe he's with each one of us as we go out and we live our lives and we do the things we have to do. He's saying, be of good courage. Don't be afraid. I am with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. I will go before you. There's like all these promises. I'll be your front guard, and I'll be your rear guard, and I'll surround you on all sides. So let's rejoice and take God to his word, and then be free enough to pray and to seek him for the things that we need. So if you bow your heads, we'll close in prayer, and then musicians are going to come up. Father, I do thank you for what you're doing in our midst, for the opportunity for change, to seek you and to trust you and to see how you're going to lead us, and Father, just to be able to participate in what you're doing. And I ask that you'd help us all to stay faithful during this week, that when your Spirit convicts us, that we would be soft and quick to respond. Father, that we would consecrate ourselves, to prepare ourselves, that we'd remember to pray for our leadership. And above all, Lord, I just ask that work that you've begun in us, that you would finish it according to your plans and purposes. In Jesus' name, amen.